From anxious to avoidant. What happens after you've been hurt too many times? There comes a moment in certain relationships when the person who is always given the most finally goes quiet. Not cold, not cruel, just quiet in a way that feels unfamiliar even to them. Like a light dimming instead of switching off. And this is the moment people misunderstand the most. They assume the anxiously attached person got over it or stopped caring. But you're doing this wrong if you think people switch attachment styles suddenly or dramatically. The truth is quieter, slower, and far more painful than most people realize. It's not a snap decision. It's a long accumulation of moments where their heart kept reaching and reaching until it finally had nothing left to give. Research from the University of Michigan shows that anxious attachment doesn't turn into avoidance by choice. It happens when the brain hit emotional overload from repeated hurt. The same instincts that once made someone cling tightly begin to shut down for protection. Their body starts doing what their mind can never say out loud. I can't keep getting hurt like this. I see this with my clients every single day. People who once texted back quickly now go silent. People who used to worry about being abandoned stop caring whether someone stays or leaves. People who once begged for reassurance now feel nothing but exhaustion. They aren't trying to punish anyone. They're trying to survive what the relationship did to them. By the end, you'll understand exactly why this shift happens, what it looks like on the inside, and how someone who was once terrified of losing others finally becomes the one who walks away. The exhaustion behind the silence. People often misunderstand this transformation. They think the anxiously attached person suddenly became cold-hearted overnight. But the truth is far more complex and honestly far more tragic. Anxiously attached people don't become avoidant out of preference. They become avoidant out of exhaustion. For so long, the anxiously attached person is the emotional pursuer of the relationship. They text first. They notice every shift in tone. They try to fix problems before they even happen. Their mind scans constantly for connection, reading between lines, interpreting pauses, absorbing emotional uncertainty like a sponge. They over-explain, over-apologize, and over-function emotionally just to keep the relationship from falling apart. Imagine constantly checking your phone, analyzing every delayed response as a sign of rejection. Imagine feeling someone's emotional distance before they even pull away. Imagine replaying conversations in your head, scanning for proof that you're still wanted, still valued, still safe. And here's the dangerous part. They keep seeking connection, even when they're depleted. They don't know how to say, I can't do this anymore, because their identity is tied to being the pursuer, the one who fights for the relationship, the one who never gives up. But the human heart has a limit. After years of living in a state of emotional hypervigilance, they hit a point where their nervous system simply can't do it anymore. The breaking point. There comes a day when something inside them clicks, a moment of emotional clarity. It might happen after being left on read one too many times, during a moment of silence when they realize they're always the one reaching out, or after yet another night where they fall asleep feeling anxious and unimportant. Often it's not a dramatic moment. It's small, quiet, a message left on read, a promise not followed through, another conversation where their feelings get dismissed. And this time, instead of panicking, something inside them goes still. At first, the anxiously attached person doesn't even realize they're changing. They simply wake up one day and notice that the message left on read doesn't send them spiraling like before. The delayed reply doesn't trigger panic. The partner's inconsistency no longer stings as sharply. Instead of chasing, they pause. Instead of overthinking, they retreat inward. Instead of pushing for connection, they let silence exist. And it's not because they don't care anymore. It's because caring began to feel like begging. The anxiously attached person stops texting first, stops seeking reassurance, stops emotionally pursuing. They begin listening to their own exhaustion, often for the first time in an entire relationship. And to the partner who's used to being chased, this feels like abandonment. But in reality, it's the anxiously attached person's first act of self-preservation. When distance finally gets attention, when the anxiously attached person becomes avoidant, their silence is not the same as fearful avoidance. It's not rooted in fear of intimacy. It's rooted in emotional burnout. They stopped reaching out because reaching out began to feel like begging. They stopped seeking closeness because closeness started feeling conditional. They stopped trying to maintain a connection because they finally realized they were the only one trying. Here's the ironic twist. The anxiously attached person's withdrawal often activates the other person's attention for the first time. The partner who was once distant or inconsistent suddenly becomes aware of the absence. They sense a shift. They start asking questions. Are you okay? Why are you acting different? Why aren't you texting me like you used to? But the anxious person has already crossed a threshold they can't uncross. Their nervous system won't allow them to return to who they were. They've entered protective mode where their energy becomes sacred, and giving away too easily feels dangerous. This is an emotional choice. They're in survival mode now. This is the moment where the anxiety that once drove them toward others begins to redirect back inward. Suddenly, the anxiously attached person is paying attention to their own needs, their own worth, their own peace. What outsiders misinterpret as coldness is actually self-preservation. What looks like detachment is actual emotional burnout. The anxious person didn't stop loving. They stopped sacrificing themselves. They're finally choosing themselves in a story where they always came last. The guilt that transforms into clarity. The hardest part for the anxiously attached person is that this new avoidant side doesn't feel like strength at first. It feels foreign and wrong, like they're betraying their own nature. They're used to being the one who cares too much, not the one who walks away. But over time, something shifts. That discomfort transforms into clarity. And that clarity becomes healing. They begin to understand that their value is not measured by how much they pursue someone. Their worth is not tied to how available they make themselves to someone who barely reciprocates. They realize that love shouldn't feel like anxiety. That connection should be mutual, not one-sided. Eventually, the anxiously attached person learns something life-changing. Boundaries are not a punishment. They're protection. Boundaries are not walls. They are doors. They understand that someone who truly loves them will not require constant pursuit to prove their worth. They learn that emotional availability shouldn't be earned. It should be offered. The evolution, not the end. Here's the most important part. When an anxious person becomes avoidant after repeated hurt, it's not the same as someone who is naturally avoidant. Their withdrawal is not rooted in fear of intimacy. It's rooted in emotional exhaustion. Their silence doesn't mean they don't care. It means caring was killing them. Their distance isn't avoidance. It's healing. So what happens next? Does the anxiously attached person stay avoidant forever? Not usually. Once they heal, once they rebuild their sense of self-worth, once they learn healthy boundaries, their heart opens again. But this time with discernment. They don't chase anymore. They don't tolerate mixed signals. They don't mistake anxiety for love. They no longer chase people who are inconsistent. They no longer stay with people who make them feel anxious. They no longer give love at the cost of their own stability. They become secure, not because someone healed them, but because they finally healed themselves. They evolve into something stronger, an anxiously attached person with secure boundaries. They love deeply, but also protect themselves deeply. They no longer abandon themselves for the sake of relationships. And that version is unbreakable. When the anxiously attached person becomes avoidant, it's not a transformation to fear. It's a transformation to respect. It marks the beginning of their awakening, their healing, and their return to self. And if someone wants to be part of their life after this transformation, they must meet them with consistency, emotional presence, and reciprocity. The real question, in the end, the real question is not, why did the anxious person become avoidant? The real question is, what finally pushed them to protect themselves? Because when you understand that, you understand everything. A message to you. And if you are an anxiously attached person listening to this, maybe this message is the permission you needed. The reminder that you're allowed to step back, to stop chasing, to heal, and protect your heart. Not because you stopped caring, but because you finally started caring about yourself. You were never too needy. You were just giving to the wrong people. If you found value in this video, make sure to subscribe because we go deeper into emotional mastery, attachment styles, and the psychology that helps you rise again. Hit that notification bell so you never miss content that speaks to your healing journey. Until next time, protect your peace, honor your heart, and never apologize for evolving.